We've all heard of range anxiety, but destination anxiety? I'm Frugal Tesla Guy, and my latest road trip helps define exactly what that is. Range anxiety is defined as the fear that a vehicle has insufficient range to reach its destination. That's a big reason why so many ICE owners aren't making the big switch to EVs. But if you ask most EV owners, they'll most likely tell you that although it does exist, it isn't nearly as bad as you think. But what about destination anxiety? Now, this is actually a term that has been defined as putting off happiness until a certain point is reached. It's the "I'll be happy when" syndrome. I'll be happy when I make a certain amount of money. I'll be happy when I get married. Now, since I'm not a therapist, I don't plan on helping you with any of those issues, but in the EV world, I defined destination anxiety as the fear you won't be able to keep your car charged at your final destination. Part of planning a road trip in an EV is not only knowing where you can charge between home and your final destination, but also making sure you can keep a sufficient charge while you're there. After all, you won't have the luxury of plugging in every night with your own personal home charger. My wife and I recently celebrated our wedding anniversary with a trip to one of our favorite spots, Ashland, Oregon. It's a small community in southern Oregon that thrives off tourism dollars, but also a hub to some beautiful waterfalls along the Rogue River. Now, it's only 136 miles away from home, and even though there is a supercharger in Mount Shasta, we technically don't need it to get there. However, the closest supercharger from Ashland is in Grants Pass, which is about 42 miles away. Now, while in Ashland, we also plan on driving up the Rogue River to check out several waterfalls with no superchargers along the way. So the big question is, with the closest supercharger 42 miles out of the way and really no need to even go there, where do we plug in to stay charged? Well, let's find out. All right, so we're getting ready to leave here, and we are heading out to our first supercharger, which will be in Mount Shasta City. And really, the cool thing about that is killing two birds with one stone, right? Because we can charge, and you've got some great shops you like there, right?
Yes.
So you're very excited about that. And what are some of the highlights that we're going to have on this trip, that you just our whole 2 days that we're there?
I'm heading to Ashland, and Ashland has amazing food, so we're going to eat well.
All right.
And then do a little waterfall hike. There's a series of waterfalls on the way to Crater Lake, so we'll stop, check these out, see how the water's flowing. Hopefully check out Crater Lake. We're gonna see if we can charge that whole way.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. This is gonna be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, we're gonna see how we do in this rugged Northern California, Oregon.
Well, in Southern Oregon,
yeah.
Yes, of course. Good. All right, so let's head out, shall we?
All right.
And of course, what do we have? Boom, Starbucks, ready to
We're
go.
fully charged.
We remembered there was some property not far from Mount Shasta near McLeod that we wanted to check out along the way. It was also an opportunity to see how the rear-wheel drive doesn't snow. Now, the road to the property started out with just a few ice patches to full-on compact snow. Now, I will admit, I was playing with fire because I do not have snow tires or chains. But honestly, it actually performed a lot better than I anticipated. There was even one point when I started to spin out from a complete stop, but after just easing a bit on that pedal, I was able to get enough momentum to get up that small grade. However, that being said, again, I recognize this is not a good idea. Make sure if you're going to be in the snow, you have the proper equipment such as snow tires and or chains. After that little adventure, we made it to the Mount Shasta Supercharger with 55 miles of estimated range in the battery. We plugged in, and just about a 5-minute walk away is downtown with some of my wife's favorite shops. So we are back after kind of doing some shopping in kind of the center of town. There's it's really only about maybe 2 blocks away, not a very long walk to downtown Mount Shasta where a lot of the shops are. So, it really was kind of nice, and really, quite honestly, in all the time that we were shopping, or you were shopping, it's up to 100% almost. So not bad. I mean, what do you think?
Yep, I got to go into a couple stores and get something to drink.
Yeah,
it was good.
So it's perfect. Yeah. So yeah, now that we're ready to kind of head on up, I think we're going to check out another property not too far from here, and then head up to Ashland, and we should probably be in the next hour or two, and we'll be at our final destination, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. Now, this is our go-to hotel every time we come here because it's just outside of town with a direct tap into the natural springs in Ashland. As of right now, there are no destination chargers, but we were happy to hear they are in the process of contacting Tesla to get a few installed. In the meantime, we needed to figure out where to get some juice for our trip to the waterfalls the next day. Now, right next door to our hotel was a Chevy and Ford dealer, both with 2 J1772 Level 2 chargers. Now, I thought I might be able to convince them to let me plug in overnight. But I canned that idea when I realized I forgot to bring my J1772 adapter. This is the first time in the 1.5 years that I've had this car and all the trips that I've done that I've forgotten that adapter. So my wife decided after this trip that we're going to buy an extra one and keep it in the car at all times so we never do that again. So now that we had to find a Tesla-only destination charger, we were actually in luck and found 3 in downtown Ashland. However, they were all at hotels. So we pulled into the Plaza Inn and Suites and talked to someone at the front desk and told them our situation and even offered to pay, but they were kind enough to let us plug in. Now, after a few hours of window shopping, getting dinner at the Lark Hotel, and then some dessert at the Mixed Bake Shop, we added a little over 50 miles of range to the battery. Once we got back to our hotel for the night, I found a 110 outlet close to the parking lot, and it had just enough cable length to get to the car. And we woke up to 20 more miles added to the battery. That morning, we stopped into town to get some coffee before heading out on our next adventure. All right, so we woke up on a cold, brisk morning. It was below 32 degrees, I know, this morning. It was definitely cold, but we got a nice breakfast, and she got her styling hat on. I don't have my styling hat on, but we are getting ready to go to it's a town called Prospect, and there's some falls around that area. And it says that it's 56 miles from here, and we, according to the computer, will have round trip there and back about 45%. So we will have more than enough, I think, battery. But I'm going to go ahead and even try to be a little bit more conservative with that battery and assume that we'll probably have about 30% coming back. So we'll see. We'll see how accurate the computer is. But here is. We're getting ready to roll. Excited. And of course,
there's 3 other waterfalls that I want to see.
By the way, both of these, she ordered both. I didn't ask for any coffee. So we're keeping that going.
We are charged.
We are charged and ready to go. So let's do it. After arriving to the trailhead 56 miles away, the estimated range in the battery was 185, meaning we actually used about 80 miles of range with 60% left in the battery. Not bad considering we were gaining elevation and the temperature was right around freezing at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, not too far away were some amazing waterfalls. Back to the car, we lost 3% of our battery to phantom drain. Not enough of a loss to worry at all. In fact, we decided to head 11 miles up the road to check out a vista point, only to find out the road to the entrance was closed. At that point, my wife wanted to make sure we were going to have enough daylight for some shopping in Ashland, and we had just under 70 miles to go. With 80 miles left in the battery, that comes out to 26%. With a 22-mile detour, my estimation at the start of the trip was 30% left once we arrived. Not bad at all. All right, so we have success. We got to see all of the waterfalls. It was a really great trip. It looks like it's dark, but it's actually not. It's 3:07 in the afternoon. We're kind of in the deep down bottom level of a parking garage where we're able to plug into a level 2 charger. So according to this, we have got 48 amps. We've got about 35 miles per hour that we're going to be charging here. So kind of as we get toward the evening hours, want to get some shopping done. A lot of great shops in Ashland. So we're going to go check that out. Hopefully get a nice good charge before we have to head back over to our hotel. And pretty much so far, so good. I mean, we were thinking maybe going out to Grants Pass to get to the supercharger, but we had plenty of charge. We're in great shape, didn't have to worry about anything, no range anxiety, anything like that. And now we're just getting a good charge.
Yeah, 80 miles left.
80 miles left in the battery from when we left. So yeah, we're doing quite well. So let's get some shopping done and see where it goes from there. Now, after a few hours of shopping, we had dinner at a great Indian restaurant and wrapped up the evening with some tea. Once we arrived at the car, the battery is up to 64%. Now we plugged in at our hotel once again, waking up to a battery that was charged to 80%. We drove into town to have breakfast at a bed and breakfast place called the Winchester Inn. And upon talking to the owner of the place, they too were looking into putting up 1 or 2 Tesla destination chargers at their place. Another quick stop for some coffee at the Mix before going back to our hotel for a little R&R. All right, here we are. We're wrapping up the trip. Just got back from a massage. Very nice. And now we're on our way back home. And really, based on the charge that we got last night, we're about 80% of our battery. Based on our trip all the way down to Redding, we don't even need to charge at Mount Shasta. So depends on what you want to do and what we want to do, but we could just head straight down from here to Redding. And we're probably going to stop at one more waterfall along the way. But all in all, I'd say pretty good trip, pretty successful.
Yeah.
Got everything done we needed to do, and
Beautiful hikes. Relaxing.
now it's back to reality here pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, nice trip, and we'll see how it goes all the way down to Redding. I don't think we're going to have any problems. I think we'll have plenty of charge to get home without having to stop at the supercharger, but depends on how we feel. We may want to stop at Mount Shasta.
Oh,
we shall
stop.
Well, we might stop. But we arrived in Mount Shasta, and my wife wanted to make a quick stop to grab a few things. In the meantime, I had a photo op with my car and the mountain. Bit of a side note, I did name my Tesla Shasta, and there's a reason for that. If you look behind the car, there it is, Mount Shasta in Northern California. The most beautiful mountain in Northern California, part of the Cascade Range. It's part of kind of the southern tip there and the Ring of Fire. And I've climbed to the top of Mount Shasta, a little over 14,000 feet twice. So just a beautiful mountain. So I thought, what better to name my car than Shasta? Not too far from Mount Shasta is Hedge Creek Falls, which will soon be along the trail to another beautiful waterfall near the railroad tracks called Moss Bray Falls. We made it back home with 26% charge left in the battery, which is 5% less than predicted at the beginning of the trip. In the end, we really enjoyed the trip and feel very fortunate to live in such a beautiful area. It was a great way to wrap up 2019 and celebrate our wedding anniversary. Now, some of you might be wondering why I would bring up a new term to the list of reasons not to buy an EV. Among other things, my biggest goal with this channel is to be honest. If you're going back and forth trying to decide if the EV life is right for you, then you need honest opinions. I'm a realist and understand it's not for everyone. I'm not here to convince you to pull the trigger on a Tesla or any other EV for that matter. That's up to you to decide. But what I am here for is to help you make an informed decision and understand what the good and not so good things are that come with owning an EV. Now, what I've tried to highlight with this video is fueling up an EV is not as easy as driving to the nearest gas station. You need to be more aware of your charging options, and sometimes those options can be scarce, meaning you've got to be a little bit more creative to keep the battery charged. For some, this may be a deal breaker. They may not want to have to think about where their next fuel stop is going to be or whether or not they'll be able to fuel up in rural areas. And that's okay. I get it. But on the flip side, people such as myself embrace what many call inconveniences, mapping out a road trip beforehand and making sure there are charging opportunities both along the way and at the final destination. Which brings us back to how this video started, by unofficially defining what I call destination anxiety. Once again, the fear you won't be able to keep your car charged at your final destination. So as we reflect on how we feel about this, we must also remember the words of Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's not the destination, it's the journey. Well, that wraps up yet another travel video. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already and would like to help support this channel, you can click the subscribe button below. Well, once again, thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, stay positively charged.